Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's bonus episode of Attendance Bias. Today is a recap episode, so it's going to be a little different from what you may expect from normal episodes. I do have a co-host today, that is JW, Josh, from the Stub Me Down Podcast. He and I tend to do recaps after Phish runs that we've attended either together or at least both of us attended at the same time. And today is hot on the heels of the Forest Hills 2025 summer two-night run. We both had a lot of thoughts about this two-night run, both about the crowd and the environment, the venue, as well as the music played. So today's going to be a little different because I did not edit even a word of this, and I also did not include any music clips. I just thought it would be in the best interest to get it out as soon as possible. So whether you were at the Forest Hills two-night stand, one night of them, or you weren't there at all, but you just want to get a look or a listen as to what it was like to be there, give it a listen. You could always hear Stub Me Down, Josh's podcast, anywhere you get podcasts. And then we'll continue regular episodes of Attendance Bias after the summer tour is over. In the meantime, enjoy today's Forest Hills recap with myself, Brian Weinstein, and Josh from the Stub Me Down podcast. Josh, welcome to Attendance Bias, or more accurately, our not quite annual, but every now and again collaboration, Stub Me Bias or Attendance Me Down, whatever we call it. I'm excited today to talk to you about the recent Forest Hills two-night run. Before we get into any of that, Josh, why don't you introduce yourself to any listeners who haven't heard of your podcast before, or maybe haven't heard of my podcast before, what you do, where they could find you, so on and so forth.
Sure. Hey, buddy. Good to see you, man. Yeah, my name is Josh JW from Stub Me Down Podcast. We are a community podcast. We talk about basically we're I won't say we're Phish centric, but we're Phish heavy. There's Grateful Dead. We've talked Goose, but essentially we pull a ticket stub from the shows that we've been to, somewhat at random. Some of the shows are more thoughtfully selected depending on who the guest is in the conversation. And we use that show as a jumping off point to talk about the music, the scene, the relationship that I have with Christian Skinny, who I do the podcast with, my best friend for over 25 years, and show buddy. And yeah, man, we started during the pandemic, like a lot of us, doing something to fill the void when we couldn't see music, and it was revisiting older and somewhat newer shows. And obviously you and I and Christian and all three of us at times, sometimes it's just a couple of us, have sat down to talk about mostly New York shows or a festival. We did Atlantic City, so a lot of fun to reflect. And this is one of the great friendships that we have developed out of the podcasting world and the Phish community. And yeah, that's pretty much a quick rundown on SMD.
Thank you. So today we're here to discuss the recent two-night run at Forest Hills Stadium, July 22nd and 23rd, 2025, a Tuesday and a Wednesday show. And I did a preview episode with my wife about this venue since I am a resident of Forest Hills, and love that stadium so much. I love Phish so much. So to me, it was like a dream come true, although there was a lot of discourse about having shows at Forest Hills Stadium when the dates were announced. There was a lot of discourse leading up to it. And I don't know how much time you had in front of your computer or your phone or social media in general over the last 24 hours. But there's been a lot of discourse about these shows since they were played. Leave it to Phish fans. So I wanted to ask you, before we even get to Forest Hills, leading up to it, what was your Phish summer like leading up to these dates? Like, what shows did you see? What were your overall impressions of how the band is playing? So on and so forth.
Sure. This was a busy summer for us. We did 10 total shows on this summer tour, which is, far and away more shows than we've ever done previously in a summer tour. We started off with the tour opener. We went up to Manchester, New Hampshire, and saw those three. Then we were in Charleston for 3, Philly for 2, and then these 2. So my impression coming in, wow, I thought they they have been on fire. They've had some like, if you break it down, like what makes a Phish show good, right? For me, there are a couple of layers. Number one is song selection first, right? Do they take anything real deep? I'm a big fan of trying to catch teases or some unique things that they might throw in. I'm not the greatest at identifying them, but recognizing that they might be playing something and then finding out afterwards. And then bust outs. And they had all of that this year. I mean, they've had a 500 show bust out, a couple, 300, 200 show bust outs over the course of the summer tour. They had the longest Sand ever, Sand, my favorite tune. We got that in Philly. Down with Disease. I think we got the longest Carini ever in Forest Hills. So they're playing some of these really in-depth jams, and it's not just, they're a friend of mine when we were at Philly asked me about the Disease that was the longest. He said, was it just a size queen? And I said, no. There was a couple of moments there where it felt like maybe they were trying to find their footing, but the back half of the jam was sick. So I feel like this summer Phish was hitting everything that makes them so entertaining for me personally. And the shows that we caught really hit the mark there. And I will also admit I am a little bit of a fluffer, right? My favorite show is the one I'm at, and I don't spend a lot of time hating the things that they do, which, I know that there's a space for that, and a lot of people kind of operate under that. But we just were so filled with gratitude that we got to see them as many times as we did. We got new venues. We made a lot of new friends, and it just, the summer tour felt just really good. The vibes were high, the energy among the crowd, the excitement of where the band is, I think really matched how they were playing. And there's always going to be those folks that are trying to chase or replace a year like 1997, which is never going to happen. They're a completely different band. Their sound is different. The songs they're playing are different. And so I enjoy them for what they are in 2025. And I think they're absolutely killing it.
I agree. And my wife and I have used the phrase a lot this summer: comparison is the thief of joy. And if
It's a
you're
big
one of
Skinny
those,
phrase. Skinny loves that phrase.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
I'm not surprised. It's if you keep looking back at 97 or as recently as 2015, I say as recently, meaning 10 years ago,
Right.
that, if you keep comparing it back to whatever your most recent favorite tour was, or whatever you discern as the most recent peak of Phish, you're never going to enjoy it in the moment. When I think not universally, because nothing in Phish is universal, but in the several little bubbles that I converse Phish in, whether it's Phish.net, a different message board, or just text with my friends, everyone is agreeing that they are riding pretty high this summer.
Yeah.
Everyone. I did not have and don't have as extensive a tour itinerary as you and your spouse. I went to Boulder. I saw the 3 nights there, these 2 nights in Forest Hills, and I'm going to 2 out of 3 in SPAC yet to come.
Nice.
So, yeah, so it's really exciting to kind of pick and choose. Otherwise, what I've been doing is just listening to the free videos that Phish posts after every run or after every show.
Yep.
And also, I do my best to listen to the live set openers as they're streamed, as they're being played. And even those blow me away. The other night, it feels like it was just a couple days ago. It really was about a week and a half ago. I was getting ready to either come to bed or brush my teeth, do my night routine. And I was thinking, all right, I'll just listen to this second set opener. And they started playing Sand.
Yeah.
40 minutes later,
Yeah.
It just kept going. But I agree with what you said. There are points where on these very long jams, and this seems to be a habit with them, that they're purposely extending these songs into long jams, which heralds all the way back to the mid 90s. As opposed to the early 2000s, I say the early 2000s, I really mean the early 2010s, when the phrase ripcord became very popular. This is like the opposite. This is the anti-ripcord, where instead of ending a song, usually they'll try and find a new direction to take the jam.
Sure. Yeah, and
That seems to be a that seems to be kind of a theme, an ongoing motif of this tour.
yeah. Somebody posted it. I think it was Scott Marks on Blue Sky posted something about the number of 30-minute plus jams in a space. I'll have to see if I can find the post and I'll put it back up. But it was something about the number of 30-minute jams in to that point in the tour. There had been, I don't know, 10 or 12 shows, and they had already played 4 30-minute plus jams, and in all of 3.0 they had played 4 total 30-minute plus jams. So, and that was over 400 shows, something like that. So they really, you think about like the Garden, right? They get into the Garden, they can kind of stretch out right away because they're so familiar with the space.
Yeah.
I feel like they didn't necessarily need to acclimate themselves to feel comfortable to stretch some of these things out like they have in years past, right? And maybe that's just their new stage setup. There could be a number of, there probably are a number of factors that have led to this, but we are certainly the beneficiaries of it. And, when you get a show and you're at a 35 or a 40-minute piece like that, it is special. And people can poo-poo maybe where the landing spot is or what the slowdown song is. But it certainly does not negate anything from these monster jams that they're putting together right now.
We're going to cut that first part and then paste it when we start talking about night one. About people poo-pooing the cool down song after an amazing sequence of music. But getting more onto the reason people are pressing play on this podcast episode, what were your expectations heading into these midweek shows at Forest Hills? Or what did you know about the venue before you came in? Because I could go on forever about what I know about it.
Sure. Well, the first thing I did was listen to your venue review that you did with Michaela. And I have to just quickly pause because one of the favorite parts of our couple of days was coming to your place. So kind of you and Michaela to invite us over. Got to meet Duncan, your amazing dog, hang out with some of your friends, had some food, a couple drinks, and that was really special. So a huge shout out, thank you to you and your lovely wife. She's just an absolute delight. And Megan and I had a great time hanging out with you guys pre-show on night one. When we drove into the neighborhood, so I listened to your venue review, and I had seen some pictures of the space, but I didn't really understand exactly how nestled into the neighborhood this venue was. And as we pull in, and I've been to New York plenty of times. I've been pretty much all over the city. This was my first time to Queens. And when you think of like a venue, you think of a place that you can see from far away, right? We could see Citi Field from our hotel in the U.S. Open, and we drove out and you could see Yankee Stadium. And you think of a stadium and you think of like this big place that you can see from far away. And as we were on our way in the first night in our Uber, like winding around the streets of your neighborhood to get to your place, I was like, I don't know. He said it was only like 5 minutes walking distance from his house. So it was really 10 minutes. Right. And I was having trouble computing that somewhere in this absolutely beautiful, historic, clean, amazing New York City neighborhood, that there was a 14,000 seat stadium buried in here. And when we walked from your place and finally got into the mix where the crowd had started to develop, I was like, I still don't see it. People are lingering around on the street corner, the train station's right there, and I'm like, where is it? And then when we walked up, I was like, holy shit, like this really is directly in the middle of this, very nice, quiet, beautiful city neighborhood. And I think the one thing, I think it was night two, because where our seats were, we were a little bit further over so we could see. And like they're playing free to open, and I'm looking beyond, and there's like, people dressed in white playing tennis on the back.
I saw a lot of pictures and a lot of videos of that on social media. That's not uncommon. Before shows, depending on the height of your seats, you could see past the stage, and people play tennis even at night because they have the lights. The fields are lit because the stadium is on the same ground. It's owned technically by the West Side Tennis Club, and people join this club for tens of thousands of dollars a year.
Sure.
So they could play tennis anytime they want. And this is all the way back to the early 1900s. And this place is very rigid. You've seen these headlines leading up to these shows about, a lot of clashes, residents at Forest Hills. It's not always the same people who belong to the tennis club. Doesn't mean that they don't like the stadium. That's the impression that these headlines create. Right. Not always the case, but you have to wear tennis whites to go on the courts there. You have to be part of the tennis club community, like a book club or a fundraising community, a group, to be a part of this tennis club. Mikhail and I do not belong. We are not members, but it is literally attached. I don't know if you noticed, but when you walked into the venue, you're walking on turf. In the off season, when I say off season, I mean when there's not shows there, or if there's a stretch of 3 or 4 days when there aren't shows, they take out all of the vending stuff. They move them over. They're all mobile, and they have tennis matches, like junior tournaments.
Right.
It is an active tennis court, and it's charming. And it's kind of an 80s movie. They're the bad guys. They're like they want to tear down the poor kids' good, like, community center for another tennis mat, like another tennis court.
That's funny. That's a very, now that I'm visualizing that's a good metaphor there. The 80s movie with the bad guys and, the hoity-toities, and here comes the riffraff. For caddy day, you get to come to the pool for 15 minutes. And, but it was very stimulating to walk into. I couldn't believe once we finally got to our seats that they were even playing here. I mean, this is not a typical Phish location. Not only because of the physical location of the stadium, but I feel like the layout of the place, it just felt very small, very intimate for a band the size of Phish, right? So that kind of stuck with me throughout the whole experience. Was like, wow, I'm shocked that this is one of the venues, and that they were doing 2 nights. I'm sure it made it a little bit easier that it was midweek as opposed to a Saturday and a Sunday. I can't imagine what that would have been like on a weekend. But my overall impression walking in was, this is a cool spot. My impression after being there for 2 days was that was a cool spot, and if Phish does return there ever, I probably won't be there.
What makes you say that? Because a lot of people have said that. My impression, and this is my teacher coming out, even in the middle of July, even at the height of my vacation, I can't help it. My personality has merged into one with my job. I have the feeling that a lot of fans didn't show up well. I don't think us as a community put forth our best effort as to being good guests to a venue that we knew heading in wasn't necessarily the normal venue that would host us.
Right.
This isn't Meriwether Post. This isn't
Sure.
Camden. This isn't Holmdel. Any number of sheds that you can interchange that
Right.
are used to having these large scale events where we just know we're either in the pav or we know we're on the lawn and we take it from there.
Yeah.
Like this place is a little bit quirkier. This place has a little more intricate places to go. It's not just sections A, B, C,
Right.
A1, A2, A3, row A through double Z. It's
Right.
it's not cookie cutter, to put it
It's
another way.
not at
So
all.
we had to do a little bit of research to know what to expect going in. And I think a lot of people are complaining, and I'm not saying you're complaining, but I'm talking about the comments I see for people who had a bad time. And I'm not going to defend it all. I also had some pretty bad times, even though it's my favorite venue. But I don't think people put in enough effort, and I'm sorry, that's my teacher side coming out. It felt like it's like when a project is assigned in February and it's not due till July in this case, and everyone's like, all right, cool, it'll be great. And then the day before, all the students start asking me questions about
Right.
what they have to do to get a good grade. And it's like I
Right.
had 5 months to figure this out.
Yeah.
And everyone just showed up and complained.
Right. And right. And what needs to be figured out? Let's think about it, right? Like, we're not asking them to write a thesis statement and a 5-paragraph essay. We're asking to be aware that it's in the middle of a high-end neighborhood, a nice neighborhood where people care about their yards and their homes, and that it's in for people outside of New York, a tougher location to get to. I think, anybody that lives in New York, this is a dream spot, I think, right? Public transportation, you can get there quick and easy. We obviously drove up from Maryland. We could have taken the train. It involved a little bit more effort, right?
Yeah, a little
And
bit more
expense.
logistics. Yeah.
And logistics and expense. And just it just time wise, we opted to drive, and that was fine. We knew that was going to be the case, as I had heard before. And then when I listened to your venue review, we knew about parking, so we were already planning either Uber or some alternative way to get from our hotel to the venue. So we knew some of those things going in. I think where people didn't take them seriously was when they were going to start, was when the
Yeah.
band was going to come on. And in all of the shows that we went to, they never came on more than 28 minutes after ticket time.
Right.
I think
I even had
maybe
the Madison Square Garden runs, the 7:30 start time. They're on at 8:03.
right, like clockwork.
Yeah.
And so we knew showtime is at 6, they'll be on before 6:30, especially considering the hard stop at 10. So we tried to plan it so we could get in, come to your place, hang out, not feel rushed. And that's the thing, we want it's supposed to be a relaxing, this is our vacation too. So we don't want it to be like, we got to go here and then here and then here, pop from spot to spot to spot. So I feel like we planned that out well. For me, the logistics of getting to Queens from Maryland, there's a lot of choke points, traffic wise, right? And that's fine. I understand that. But I think the venue itself, there were a couple of times where it was a little chaotic. So the night one, we got up to our seats. We were in the very last row of the stadium, which I absolutely loved because we could look over the railing and see New York City behind us, and the view was spectacular. The weather was flawless. And so from that perspective, it was great. But once they started, man, thousands of people had not even sniffed where their seats were. And one of the things that I always tend to do when I get to a new venue is, hey, let's go scope out the seats before we do our social walk around, pre-show. And we've been getting in, 45, 50 minutes before they were coming on. So we went, we checked it out. We didn't go all the way up, but I was like, okay, it looks like they're up there. Here's how we get there. We went, we got a drink, and all of that. When we went up for the show, Nobody knew where they were going. So they were like, well, is this row this? Oh no, I'm in the wrong. I'm in 702. I should be in 502. And people didn't know where they were supposed to be going. And then when they got there, nobody shut the fuck up to listen to the music. And so easily for the first 30 minutes, maybe 40 minutes of set one on Tuesday, like I was having trouble just trying to block out, the chatter around us.
It's funny you say that, being in the top row, because I was on the floor both nights and I had the exact same experience. Even though there weren't assigned seats, people still were moving, trying to get past, either being huge assholes and being like linebackers and pushing their way through, or trying to kind of cuddle their arms and shoulders into themselves and kind of, I don't know, Sonic the Hedgehog their way. Yeah. And just find a spot and stay there.
Yeah.
Just find your place. And you should have done it 20 minutes ago. When the band started, when they came on, to your point, all of a sudden these very narrow entrances to the floor, which, let's not forget, this is a tennis stadium built in 1923 for smaller people who existed at the time. People just smushed their way into it and then just couldn't find a place to stand and stay. And it was crushed on the floor. Crushed.
Yeah. I could see from up top, and I was like, the floor is packed.
I mean,
nuts to butts from the front rail to the back. And, I was definitely, we were on the floor in Charleston, and I had been a little bit apprehensive about that just because of the same type of, maybe I'm showing my age a little bit, but, for both me and my wife, the floor is not as attractive as it once was. And a lot of it is because of that. People don't necessarily respect your space. They're too fucked up and, are constantly backing up into you or coming forward into you. And then you get the people that aren't supposed to be there. And I mean, I have a podcast called Stub Me Down, so I'm not, poo-pooing on people that are in, locations that they don't have tickets for. But I mean, at some point we got to look around and be like, okay, there's not space for me here. And it's, it doesn't involve like, all right, well, let's jam another 50 people into this corner of the venue. But that was one concern. But then the other thing in the seating bowl, and I felt this a little bit more on night two, because we were almost at like an angle of the stadium. And so if you think about a standard section in any venue, you've got a row on either side that will, an aisle on either side that will grant you access to either side of the row, right? Well, where we were sitting on night two, there was no other aisle. So because it was like an angle, they just angled the metal benches. There was no aisle to walk up and down between them. So for us to exit the row, we had to walk all the way down to the end of the row, and then all the way down was about halfway down. And then you had to turn, which was basically just a little bit of a wider row where there were still people standing, to get to the stairs, to get to the portal to take you out to the concourse. And at one point on night two, like Megan looked at me and she's like, there's a lot of people here. And night two, we definitely felt a little bit more of a crush. There were some people in our row that were not like seated there, which was kind of a strange place to, try and post up. But she was like, can we leave a couple minutes before the end of the encore, because she just had a lot of nervousness, and so did I, about trying to get out from
it takes forever.
And it was, kind of steep, and you get people start pushing and shoving. So we headed out a couple of minutes before the end of the Wednesday night encore, just to beat that crush. And so that was a little bit, I like
Well, you know,
you
let me
needed
ask you
to.
something. Let me
Yeah, go
ask you
ahead.
though.
Sorry, I'm rambling a
No,
little
no,
bit.
no. It's cool because you're giving an accurate depiction of what it was like to be in the stands. Me on the floor, night one, it got to the point where I couldn't turn my body left 90 degrees without my nose bumping into the person in front of me. Like it was too crowded.
Yeah,
I
that's just
assumed it was oversold, although I found out after from someone who doesn't quite work there but knows people who does that they had a huge rush. People were just overwhelming the security
security
members
people.
checking the wristbands, and you could just walk onto the floor without any issue.
Right.
The irony there is that the floor was worse from everything that I've taken in from others. But this doesn't happen at Forest Hill Stadium with any other act. This
Of
did
course
not
not.
happen with Goose. This did not happen at the time that I saw King Gizzard, and I'm seeing them again coming up. This does not happen when they have GA floor shows. Why can't Phish fans meet the moment?
You know, that's a great question. I have always felt like the majority of us are there to have a good time, but be responsible, be respectful, enjoy the experience, but also not shit on other people's experience.
That's kind of
Um,
the golden rule. That's like the axiom, right? Have a good
it,
time, but don't ruin others' good time.
right. And but I also feel like we live in a world today where there's a certain amount of entitlement that people feel like they have. And I mean, dude, I just when we walked out of there and like walked through the neighborhood on our way out, the number of dead balloons and beer cans and shit that people had just thrown on people's lawn. No wonder those people had such an objection about Phish in particular coming to town because we're like fucking locusts, and the destruction of property and like I walked by and I was horrified and not surprised, but I thought, hey, with all of that, with where we were, like maybe there was a chance that people would pick up after themselves. We were walking out on night one and there were like beer cans and water bottles like on the stairs heading out. Like I walked out of the portal with like five things in my hand, in addition to like my own trash. Like I picked up some things because they were like literally safety hazards. Like if somebody not paying attention steps on like a crushed beer can, they're going to wipe out and take out people on their way down. And so we definitely did not meet the moment either inside the venue as far as the um listening to the music as opposed to talking over it for I would even say for a majority of the run. And then I think outside the venue, and I mean I saw some posts on social media like there were people like pissing on people's houses, and like I just at some point we have to grow the fuck up. And
It's never going to
just
happen. The
it's
problem and
never
the
gonna
reason it's never
happen.
going to happen is because guys like you and I in our 40s plus, um, we're the ones who probably are not always. I don't want to speak for everyone, and this is not an old man yells at cloud moment, but Fish keeps garnering new fans, which is a
Yeah.
good thing. It's a
Yeah.
good thing, but everyone's still going through their early 20s. You know, there's a sizable group of people of new
Yeah.
fans, and God bless them. I really hope that as people get more disposable income at younger ages, while they could still keep the band touring. I was the one who would ash my pipe on someone's not front lawn, because I never went to a show in a neighborhood really like this.
Right.
But everyone's careless at a certain age, but everyone
Sure.
tends to grow up. But there's fewer people who have grown up at shows.
Yeah. Well, and I think that there also is a somewhat lawless nature of the Phish experience. A prime example, there was a guy in front of us on night one. Maybe it was night two. I don't recall, but he had a pre-roll canister, and he unscrewed it, and he pulled out the J, and he just threw the canister on the ground. And I was like, I'm not going to say anything. Like, I'm not going to do it. And then he sparks it. He passes it to his buddies. And then I see him pick it up like 2 minutes later. And it was like teetering on the edge. Like if he had moved his foot, it would have fallen down to the next row and, been added to the trash that they would be picking up at the end of the night. A couple minutes later, he leans over and he picks it up. And I was like, okay, cool. So I tapped him on the shoulder and I was like, hey, thanks for picking that up. And he was like, yeah. And then he was like, I didn't think I'd be able to, he's like, I thought I'd be able to smoke all of it. And so he was using it to, save the rest of the joint. And nonetheless, he still picked it up. But, maybe the purpose was not, oh, maybe I shouldn't leave this trash here. It was, I'm going to need this later.
And then the other big issue that you brought up with our community, which is entirely self-contained. This has nothing to do with the venue. It has nothing to do with the neighborhood, anything like that, was the talking.
Yeah.
And everyone I've spoken to about these shows, and it's only been about 24 hours, but I've spoken to a lot of people because I was so excited for these shows. This was my dream come true. And I left quite disappointed, not in the music necessarily, but in the impression that the fan base made. Every single person has mentioned people were yapping almost nonstop.
Yeah.
My experience included, in two completely separate areas of the floor from night one to night two, where I had to ask people, and I usually never do this, but I don't feel bad, but ask them to turn it down is the phrase that I use. Because if you tell someone to stop talking or shut up, it's only going to breed conflict. Sure. So as, hey, could you turn it down a bit? And I even started wearing earplugs at shows. And the number one benefit of earplugs is that it drowns out the yapping and the buzz of people chatting. And there's this one person in particular who was very shrill and loud and having full on loud conversations. And I just asked her, hey, could you please turn it down a bit? Because it was night two and they were playing the best jam of the night, I think, in Cities.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to miss it. and she got so offended.
I'll say this about the talking.
Daytime show?
Well, I think part of it is that, yes. I think also part of it is just the social nature of the environment, right? You're standing next to your friends, you're going to talk about whatever, my wife and I will make comments about the music or this and that, so we're not, it's not like I zip my lip as soon as the band comes on and don't say a word until, lights, right? But this had a super happy hour feeling to it, and Christian and I,
right? Like a sundown kind of, like you're at
like
you're at a wedding and it's cocktail hour.
Right. And Christian and I have joked about this for decades, that especially in the upper deck of certain shows, certain venues, like the music is it's like it's on the jukebox at the bar, and it's not the focal point of the event. And and then you get people on whatever substances they might be partaking in. And again, no judgment, but that also tends to lead people to be chatty. The other thing that I got, and this is the last point I'll make about the crowd, was that it seemed more so at this show than any of the other shows that we attended this summer, that the crowd was more of a casual Phish crowd. Like, certainly there are their diehards. You were there, I was there. There were a number of diehard fans, see a lot of shows that were there. But it also felt like there were a lot of people that were maybe like, oh, Phish is playing an outdoor venue in New York, like, let's go check it out. Oh, it's a Tuesday, like, that'll be a fun thing to do. They'll be done early, and that there was, maybe they know a couple songs, or they've been to some shows before, but it felt like there was more of a novice element to the crowd, a novice Phish element to the crowd, at least where we were. And I don't know if it was everybody's experience, but even a couple people I talked to, there was one guy who was hitting on my wife when I was grabbing a beer, and when I pulled up, we started talking. He's like, "Well, I've been three or four shows, or maybe 10. I'm not really sure." And it's like, okay, I mean, that's cool. Glad you're here. I hope you're having a good time. Stop hitting on my wife. And but it felt like, there were some folks there that maybe the Phish experience was more of a novelty for them than a way of life. How about that?
See, maybe. I don't know. I kind of picture it like there's a scene in The Ten Commandments, the old Charlton Heston movie, and also The Prince of Egypt, the more recent, like 1998 animated version of that story of Exodus, where it's when the angel of death comes down and kills every firstborn of every Egyptian, and it's kind of indiscriminate. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter how old the person is. It's a cattle also, and there's like this green mist just passing over them, and they all just die because that's a plague. I felt like it was indiscriminate. Like everyone was talking. It doesn't matter
Yeah.
if they saw 400 shows or if this was their second show. It
Yeah.
didn't matter. Gender didn't matter. It didn't matter boyfriend, girlfriend, 10
Right.
friends, or someone by themselves. Everyone was talking at an unacceptable volume
Yeah.
to see live music. And
Yeah.
again, that doesn't happen at a lot of other shows that I see at Forest Hills Stadium. I know there's
Sure.
only one Phish. I'm not naive. Obviously, I know that it's a different setup, but man, we just, as a crowd, I was so disappointed. I was
Yeah.
so disappointed in us, royally, the royal
Yeah.
us.
Yeah. Yeah. We can definitely do better. Whether we will or not remains to be seen. But with some of those factors, and it did feel, like, I mean, you said it about being on the floor, like even in the stands, like it did feel like we were right on top of each other. We had a little bit more room on Tuesday compared to Wednesday, but I feel like Wednesday was as crowded as it was. It felt like Wednesday was even more ridiculously packed than the previous night, and so those are a couple of reasons I think that while I enjoyed the music and the experience, we've been kind of doing this thing where we're trying to catch them in places we haven't been before.
Well, that's what
And
Boulder was about also.
yeah,
But none of
yeah,
these problems happened at Boulder.
right,
There was
right.
also
A
triple,
lot more
quadruple the
room
amount
to
of
stretch out.
space.
Yeah, right, exactly. And if you could kind of move around and get away from some things if you wanted to at Boulder. We weren't at Boulder, but I certainly can see the comparison there.
Yeah. Well, not everything was bad. This isn't just two old crotchety men bitching about the young kids coming up and talking. I know everyone pressed play just to hear that. No, there was also music over these two nights, let us not forget. And there were also very good shows. There
Yeah.
were people, I saw all the different comparisons online about worst show of tour, one of the best jams of tour, all this back and forth. That's kind of irrelevant to the two of us. We're just going to kind of go over what our favorite parts were, I think.
Sure. Yeah.
So the first night, Tuesday the 22nd, at that get together at my apartment that you brought up earlier in our conversation, the obligatory "what do you think they're going to play tonight" conversation came up with a couple of my buddies, and I said, "Oh, easily, Mama Dance and Wolfman's Brother." And everyone, not everyone, but everyone in the conversation was a little like not dismissive in like they didn't want me to say it, but they were kind of, "Oh man, they always do that." And I said, "Yeah, I'm playing the odds. They're going to play
Yeah.
Mama Dance and they're going to play Wolfman's Brother. Though it's easy money to
Sure.
bet on that." And the first set of the first night, Moma Dance, Rift, Sigma Oasis, Possum, Wolfman's Brother, Stash, Blaze On, Monsters, I Am the Walrus. My highlights, easily Sigma Oasis was the best jam of the set to me. Possum and Wolfman's Brother, classic pairing that I enjoyed. And from then on, I mean, I Am the Walrus was fun, but it didn't knock my socks off the way, say, A Day in the Life did in Boulder.
Sure.
To compare set closing Beatles covers that are rarely played at these days, at least. So the first set to me was like an afternoon set at a festival. It didn't blow me away. I may not remember too much about it except the Sigma Oasis jam. And I went out to go get to go to the bathroom and go get a drink of water during Blaze On. And I was happy to stay outside for a little bit and miss Monsters because you can't hear it outside, right? The venue is
Yeah.
uh, uh, um, so well
Soundproofed. Yeah.
soundproof, thank you, that you really don't know what song they're playing when you're outside of the actual structure. So I missed Monsters entirely and came back about halfway through I Am the Walrus. But to me, Sigma Oasis, Possum Wolfman's Brother, that sequence was my favorite of the first set.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm not too far off from you. I felt like at the beginning of the show, I felt like the MoMA was like half a beat too fast. I felt like they kind of came out a little bit hot, maybe because of the curfew hanging over the whole show, right? Like the hard stop at 10. So the MoMA rift felt a little bit rushed, but I felt like they really settled in by the time Sigma started. I thought that jam could have gone on a little bit more. It felt like Trey kind of suddenly was like, oh, we got to move on to the next song because, time frame and I don't know if that was just me and how I was feeling because there were still people coming in and moving around, and it just felt the beginning of the show felt a little unsettled for me. And
Well,
then
no one was in there yet.
right, and then the Sigma dropped. That was good. I will never hate on a Wolfman's. I think it's one of the most consistent vehicles they play. And wherever it is, whenever it is, give me a Wolfman's all day. It's going to be good. And then the back half or the back, quarter of the set, really, the stash I thought was tight. I like Monsters. And then I Am the Walrus was interesting because we had just seen the last one they played in Charleston.
Right.
So I was a little bit surprised that resurfaced so quickly. But anytime they want to throw in some Beatles there, I'm game for it. And the by the end of the set, I felt like I had kind of relaxed a little bit. They certainly had relaxed a little bit. I think people had gotten to where they were going to be, and the table was really set for, in my opinion, one of the best sets we saw through our summer tour.
That's awesome to hear because set two, Carini, beautiful segue into Tweezer, into What's Going Through Your Mind, A Life Beyond the Dream, Harry Hood. 5 songs, second set. To me, this was the set of the summer. For me, only what I've seen, because like I admitted at the beginning of the conversation, I haven't heard most of the summer tour. But that first hour, right? I already heard people terming it the power hour of Carini into Tweezer and What's Going Through Your Mind. I'm going to re-listen to that a lot coming up for the rest of this summer and probably beyond.
Yeah.
Just amazing jamming. Carini, what was it, clocked at like 29 minutes or something?
Yeah, something like that, just over 28, which I think is, beats by a few seconds the previous record holder, which I don't have the stat of when that was, but we missed the first couple of minutes of Carini because we were still, the set break was literally like 17 minutes. Like it was a super short set break. And so by the time we got in, they had, were just kind of wrapping up the chorus and just stretched out into a spectacular jam that, they got some blissful moments in there. There was some darkness to it. And it was still kind of light out too, which was also, weird. Usually, it's dark when set 2 starts. So that was a little bit of a difference too. But as it got darker, in the night, the Carini got, a little bit darker as well. And just a beautiful version there. And then to drop into Tweezer, that was, those are the two, two of the, the biggest Phish songs that you can catch, and for them to get stacked back to back. And then What's Going Through Your Mind is everybody's new favorite, and rightfully so. And this tune has an incredibly high batting average. This was the 12th version. And I think there's maybe 2 that don't go out there a little bit at least. Um,
Yeah, Mondegreen was kind of its coming out party.
yeah, and
And New Year's Eve,
and then they
obviously.
built a New Year's Eve gag around it as well. So I feel like, um, and then they just played a super long one this summer tour, or maybe that was spring tour. They had it was almost 40 minutes or something like that. Um, so that is just, I think they're having a lot of fun because of the newness of that and the exploratory nature that they can have with something new like that. Um, so I mean that hour right there is easily up there for, my favorite part of Phish, from this summer tour. Um, and then look, man, people are going to poo poo wherever they land unless it's what, Life Boy. I mean, it, there's literally not a soft tune that is going to be roundly accepted for them to come down off of an hour like this. So Life Beyond a Dream here, I'm fine with it. I don't mind that as a set list choice here. Especially when they follow it up with a 15-minute absolutely beautiful soaring Harry Hood.
Yeah,
Like,
I didn't mind Life Beyond a Dream at all because let's not forget we are still in a stadium, and a big ballad in a stadium can be very empowering
yeah,
for those who like the song. And imagine just the band playing it, looking up and seeing this horseshoe shaped crowd everywhere around them with the big lights coming on. It was dark by that point. If like you said, they're going to land anywhere, and this is a story as old as time. It's if it wasn't a Life Beyond the Dream, then it's 1997, and after Mike's Groove, they play Dirt, and
right,
people go to the bathroom and get a drink,
right.
and feel let down. But they did close the set with Harry Hood, and I had a moment during Harry Hood that doesn't happen very often anymore during Hood, where there's a good jam to begin with, but when they come back to the coda, you could feel good, you could feel good. And I looked around, and this stadium that means so much to me, and it's packed to the brim, as we may have mentioned once before in this conversation, but everyone just screaming this chorus, and you could hear it from the stage and behind and around you. It's everything I've loved about my life currently
Yeah,
where I live, and also Phish, my favorite band since I was 13, just all melding into one moment.
yeah,
So I love this Harry Hood for deeply sentimental reasons,
sure.
in addition to whatever musical integrity I find in it. But I love this whole set.
Well,
I
and
would
just
take this set.
honestly, just thinking back, I mean, just thinking back to everybody singing "You Can Feel Good" about Hood, like it's giving me goosebumps. Like that was a total moment for sure. And um, you know, the effort to get there, and you pile all of these things into your expectations for a show, right? Like the band is supposed to know, like, we sat in traffic to get here, and we dealt with this and we dealt with that. um and those are the, your own personal narratives that you create in your world as you travel about for these. But there was a moment there when the lights are full on and the crowd is locked in, and um it's fleeting, we know that, but I feel like they definitely captured it in that Hood. And then a Slave to the Traffic Light encore. I am not personally offended by more. Like, we need more love and light. Like, let's fucking go. And then a reprise. I mean, to me, that's a pretty close to a perfect second set.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just, I agree. I agree. If you can't like it, I don't know. Maybe they'll play your favorite show next night, but it's
Right.
hard. It's hard not to when even on paper, right? Which is the wrong way to judge a show, which we'll get to tomorrow night or the next night, the 23rd, the Wednesday night. But even on paper, this looks like a phenomenal second set,
Yeah.
inclusive of the encore.
Agreed.
But
Agreed.
speaking of that next night, so what did you and your wife do during the day in between the Tuesday and Wednesday show?
So we went to the Mets game, actually. We went saw Mets Angels, and Paige threw out the first pitch. So that was very cool. There was a lot of heads running around the stadium, which um, was funny because it was also some sort of camp day. So there were thousands and thousands of kids all in matching shirts and holding hands in line and stuff like that, walking around the stadium. And then when we were in our seats, you could see like all these different pockets, which was really cool. And I had never been to Citi Field. Actually, that's the first baseball game I've ever been to in New York City. So that was a cool thing for me. And we had I was very impressed with the ballpark food. Very nice ballpark. I didn't really think it was very much to look at from the outside, but inside the ballpark was a really nice stadium, and really liked the way it was set up. Easy to get around. We didn't really have to wait for anything. Had a couple of nice meals, and watch Paige throw out the first pitch, which was also very fun. And then we shot back to our room, got ready, and went down to Austin Street, grabbed a drink and a bite real quick on Austin Street before heading in. And again, we knew, kind of the timing. We would much rather get in, get a drink, and be leisurely kind of walking around the scene, as opposed to, staying outside and trying to get as much as we could outside before heading in. And the timing worked out. We ran into Megan, and we ran into a bunch of other people on the way in, which was great. That was one weird thing from all of the shows that we went to this year. I didn't really cross paths with as many people as I kind of, normally do, which, that's just an offhand observation. But then we got in, again, walked around a little bit to check out the options for food. We grabbed a bite to eat and a drink before getting up to our seats. But then again, we wanted to be up there a little bit earlier because they had started at, I think, 6:26 on Tuesday. So we didn't want to have to scramble, and with us being in a little bit of a different area, I just wanted to kind of get in and get settled. And so, yeah, that was kind of our pre-day on Wednesday.
I was next door to you. My friends and I, who were staying at my apartment, went to Flushing, right next to Citi Field, to get some soup dumplings,
Okay.
local delicacy. And then by the time we got back, because there was some Citi Field traffic.
Oh God, it was a nightmare. It took us almost an hour to get from where we were staying, which was essentially right across the street from LaGuardia, down to Austin Street. It was just an absolute clusterfuck.
Bad.
Yeah.
But so we went there, and then by the time we got back, we were anticipating a smaller group, a smaller hang, pre-show on Wednesday than the one that you guys came over the day before on Tuesday. So we did that, and we left a little bit later than we did on Tuesday. Left closer to 3:30. Got to the gates around like I don't know if we left at 5:30. Got there by like 5:40, 5:45. Real quick. No one stopped to chat or anything. Kind of like you, we wanted to be leisurely, but we wanted to be on time.
Yeah.
And compared to the first night where we were on the floor all the way in the back, where typically it's a lot looser and it's a lot more spread out, the first night it was not the case. It was just more people entering and exiting and trying to get in front of me and behind me. We went much closer to the front, where it wasn't more spread out at all. There was no more space, but at least people were not constantly trying to worm their way and wiggle their way ahead and behind us. But it was just as loud. But anyway, sound was good. Sounds good. View was good. And we kind of knew what we were in for this time in terms of comfort and expectations. So the first set reads, Free, Back on the Train, Theme from the Bottom, Cities, Divided Sky, Timber, Ether Edge, and the Squirming Quill closer. For me, highlight by far, and maybe of the whole show, was Cities. Wasn't even discussion.
Yeah, I as set ones go from this run, my nod goes to night 2 for set 1. I'm a big fan of Back on the Train. When I started seeing Phish, that was a regular staple and a tune that I really dug. I thought the theme was a little bit short. I felt like they just kind of chopped it at the end. When they got to the end of theme, there was no, real exploratory anything in there. It was kind of standard. The cities, Absolutely. Megan called the cities as we were walking in. She's like, I think we're going to get a Nasty Cities tonight. And it was every bit as good as I had hoped when they started playing it. Re-listenability to that cities is off the charts.
Yeah, they were on tempo right from the first note.
Yeah. I mean, the jam was intricate and super groovy, and Divided Sky too. I thought that Trey egging on the both sides of the stadium during the ego pause was super funny, and you could just tell he was having a blast with that. Another highlight here, though, for me was Timber. I thought that Timber was super ragey, and I also like Timber because it was written by Josh White, who was an old blues guitarist from back in the day. If I ever meet Trey, I think that's going to be my, like my introductory comment is, oh, I'm Josh White, but not the one that wrote Timber. And then, you get a 17-minute Ether Edge here, which I also thought was very good. We saw one in The Man that went deep too. And whether you like the beginning of the song or not, the jam has been very consistent, and they've taken it out there a little bit. I think there was a really good one at the Hollywood Bowl that Skinny saw, and we saw a decent one in Philly as well. So that was fun. I really like the flow of this set. They didn't really have much slowdown.
Agreed.
Maybe the squirming coil at the end was probably the slowest song of the set.
And that's a good set, if that's what you're saying. And they also did the classic ending where the band members walk off and leave Page on his own to finish the song before he says, "We'll be right back." 15 minutes it used to be,
Yeah. Yep. Little bit of a due to the chairman, I think, for his throwing out the pitch at the Mets game, and so he was definitely strong. The one thing I did take note of was Mike. The bass sound in there was really good. And one of the things that a lot of people I heard online complaining about was that the sound in there sucked. And
not where I was.
Did not where, and we were at the top of the stadium, so you would think we would, you would get a lot of, lost audio because there's nothing bouncing back behind you. But I thought it was very well balanced. You could hear each of the members very clearly, and there were definitely some standout moments for Mike where I was like, yeah, I mean, the bass in here sounds awesome. And then, you go down the stairs in the portal and there's a sign on the wall that says you're entering the bass trap, as the soundproofing hits, which I thought was funny too. But I absolutely loved this set one. And highlighted by the cities and the timber, and and I'll give an honorable mention to Ether Edge there as well.
Yeah, I would take this set one over the previous night's set one by a long shot. I think like you said, the flow, the jam in cities, and just the song selection, all the things you mentioned at the very beginning of our conversation, it all hit.
Well, and it's night two, right? It's night two, so I feel like maybe they've relaxed a little bit. I didn't catch that kind of rushed beginning to the set that I did on night one. Free, I think, kind of lends itself to that a little bit as a tune in the opening slot. But definitely enjoyed set one. Although the environment, the crowd, the chatter definitely were present, but doesn't take away from the set list on paper for sure.
Right. And then the second set, Punch You in the Eye, Ghost, A Wave of Hope, What's the Use, Ruby Waves, Backwards Down the Number Line, and your favorite, Character Zero, to end the second set with an encore, a pretty long encore of Sneakin' Sally Through the Alley, Wilson, and Rocky Top to end it. I was thrilled with the opener of Punch You in the Eye. I don't know the last time, if ever, I've heard it open a second set. So right away, I felt a little off kilter in a good way. This is what I love. Set list games, unexpected placements, things like that. I love the Punch You in the Eye. I love the back and forth, like you mentioned during Divided Sky with the cheering on opposite sides of the stadium. this got me excited. A pretty wild ghost in a good way. And then I did not love the jamming in A Wave of Hope, Ruby Waves, even backwards down the number line. Like to me, this is where things went a little off and a little rambly compared to the night before, which was tight and energetic.
Yeah. Punch to open. I mean, you said it all. Though the thing that I have loved about Punch lately is that they're doing the longer intro. So they're at about 5 minutes on the build up into Punch. So I have totally dug that. I loved the Ghost, although it felt like Trey got bored quickly at the end because that jam was really, I mean, and it was 16 minutes, but I feel like they could have taken that for a while. Like they had settled into a really nice groove the last few minutes. Trey teased, take me out to the ball game there. Just like one run through of that. And then like 2 minutes later, they're segging out of Ghost into Wave of Hope, which I thought the seg was good. But this goes back to a conversation that I think we had maybe one of the first couple of times that we ever chatted. And that's I always get it wrong. The light corollary.
Yes, that's it. The light corollary.
The light corollary. And that's, they like to jam the songs that they're kind of in the moment with, right now. And A Wave of Hope is definitely one of those tunes where it's got a pretty high batting average. They jam it out pretty frequently to like a 15, 20-minute piece. But I think Trey feels very comfortable in that tune right now. And, I was thinking about this. Is funny when we were driving back and listening to this. I was like, I wonder if this tune would have been more widely accepted if it wasn't called A Wave of Hope.
I agree. Like it's a lot cheesy.
If it was called, and the sentiment in the song like is fine, it's a little bit of a rocker. But I wonder if it was called something else. Maybe would it be more widely accepted. Same with Ruby Waves. I like Ruby Waves. It's a little bit swimming in the ocean with the stars above and all that stuff. I think this version, I liked this Ruby Waves jam. I thought that it was, you kind of got lost a little bit in there. And sometimes I like that when, they're just jamming and you're not sure kind of where they're going or where they're coming from.
That's the vibe that I got throughout most of the second set after Ghost.
Yeah. And for some people, it feels listless. It feels, like they're kind of wandering around trying to find a thread to pull. And I didn't necessarily feel that. It did feel like a cohesive jam to me, and I'll have to listen to it again. But, I think Wave of Hope and Ruby Waves, those two songs maybe together, on paper, people are going to maybe not have a high opinion of, but I mean, that's 35 minutes there.
Followed up by backwards down the number line.
And then you get a number line.
You take your average Jaded Vet, and this is a piece of toilet paper, the second set.
Right. Well, and then, I mean, I'm a vet.
Everyone else loves Character Zero, Josh.
Character Zero probably brought back some of those good vibes. Now, I'm going to maybe say something controversial, but I would prefer to not hear a 4-minute Sneak and Sally ever again. Like when they stopped playing, like they had 15 minutes. I'm not sure what time they came out for after the
they had about
break,
15 minutes or maybe 20.
Right. And so I knew that they were going to do at least a couple of tunes just to get as close to the 10 o'clock mark as they could. So when they came out with Sneak and Sally, I was like, all right, cool. They'll do this for, 10 minutes and then they'll throw something, quick on the end. I was even thinking maybe a Rocky Top because they can run through that in, 2-3 minutes. And when they stopped the Sneak and Sally, I was like, and then they started with Wilson and I was like, okay. I was like, they're going to have to do something after Wilson because Wilson's certainly not going to be extended longer than 4 minutes or so. But and I love Sneakin' Sally. It's a great tune. I saw it at my first show. But I would prefer that they keep it as a something that they can get a little bit more comfortable with than just a quick run through.
It's
That
got
seems
a
like
groove. It's got a real thick groove that as good as any other that they play.
It seems like that's a song that really deserves the space to breathe and not this cursory run through that we got here.
At the same time, it's a crowd favorite and everyone is excited to hear it.
Sure. Oh yeah. And then you get crowd participation with Wilson, and then
the bluegrass.
The bluegrass, and I like Phish bluegrass. I don't get the fascination with Rocky Top. I'm not from Tennessee, so maybe that's why. But I like all the bluegrass stuff. It
heralds back all the way. It heralds back. They've been playing it forever.
Sure. Yeah, it's a nostalgia tune there, but I mean, nonetheless, it was, a 3-song encore. We got a 3-song encore the night before. So I have no problem with the encores. My only, slight criticism would be the Sneakin' Sally there. But, if we're cutting and pasting, give me night 2, set 1, and give me night 1, set 2. A couple of things, that doesn't mean I'm bailing on everything, but as far as the way I like to jam, I think that's kind of how I lined up. So I thought overall musically, that it was a great 2 days. And I was thinking about it because I was like, Phish playing here is a novelty, right? There was nothing really new here. What's going through your mind? I mean, they played very safe tunes. They got into some jamming. There were no bust outs, which I thought was an interesting divergence from the rest of this tour, where almost every night they were playing something that had been shelved for at least 100 shows. So. And then I was like, well, I guess it can be a novelty, and they could also jam out and play a couple of fun shows, and that both of those things could be true, because generally when you get a novelty thing, like it is just that. It's not necessarily it's special because of the novelty effect, not because of what they actually did. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that's a big deal because that matters to me. I love looking up set lists on Phish.net, and underneath the actual set list is a paragraph worth of notes.
Sure.
That's my favorite kind of show. As long as it also has a jam or two, that's the icing on the cake. I'll take that over most any other kind of show that people like, or generally. So I also hoped for the best, obviously. I was physically a bit uncomfortable. And then after it, I was, like I said earlier, kind of disappointed in the way that the way the audience, the quote unquote community showed up to this venue. Do you think they'll be back?
I don't
think so either.
I don't. And you know what? I look at it this, like, Trey gets to sleep in his own bed on these shows. So I'm sure he loved that. I'm sure that they loved playing there. I had seen somewhere online that Trey had been at
the Judah Live posted it. He and Trey went to go see the Talking Heads at the stadium.
And then more recently, Trey was at maybe King Gizzard.
Yeah, I was at that show too. I saw pictures of him like the next day from that show, which was an amazing show. And they are also playing there this year.
Right. And I think so. I think, maybe from Trey's perspective, like, it's a cool room. It's in New York, so there are a couple of those types of factors, but I feel like, I'm not sure that the community of Forest Hills is going to rush to sign Phish to come back, number one. And I know that's a completely separate issue.
Yeah, but it also doesn't work that way.
Well, right. That's true too. And you covered that quite well in your venue review, the battle between the venue and the neighborhood. But I think some of the logistics, this tour also felt really disjointed as far as like where they were going and coming from. And
Christy from Surrender to the Flow posted earlier today that the drive from Forest Hills to Saratoga is the only drive between 2 points on this tour that isn't 10 plus hours driving.
yeah, I mean, that's shocking. And yeah, I mean, we felt the pinch going from Charleston to Philly, um, which, there was only the Monday in between that. But anyway, so I think that the disconnected nature of how this tour proceeded from spot to spot, and who knows, maybe they built it around, availability of some of these places, right? Like, I'm not sure. Like, I did grab a picture of the concert schedule there at Forest Hills, but and it looks like they have a pretty robust schedule. I mean, it looks pretty busy for the summer. So maybe it was something like that. But I feel like them playing small places like that is it's just a challenge logistically, and maybe for the band too. I mean, I don't know for sure, but I would be surprised if they went back there, next year. They might do it, years down the road or something like that. But I would be surprised and would like to know a little bit more about the band's reaction from playing there if that's something that they do choose to go back to.
I would be too. I also, for this whole conversation, have been saying that us as a community, we didn't meet the moment, but also the staff at Forest Hills was not prepared for what was incoming. The idea of a person whose job is to just check wristbands and allow people onto the floor, that was not done well. The entrance went very, very slow for a band whose fans have been conditioned to know they're not coming on until a half hour post ticket time. And normally that's 2 hours later than it's posted for these shows. So it was a big old mess. And also there's not like at Madison Square Garden, for example, I know it's a completely different venue premise, but you go one way to go to the bathroom, and then there's like kiosks for refreshments, for beers, for cocktails, whatever. It's not like that at Forest Hills. You have to seek out the things you need, the bathrooms, the water filling stations, and they're not logistically very well organized for a fan base. And I don't mean this as a compliment, a fan base that needs very loud, large signage to know what to do. Yeah. I'm sorry, but with Phish, you have to cater to the lowest common denominator. With the fans,
a lot of those.
When you're talking about people who aren't aware of the community to begin with, you just have to. You have to make it very easy for the fans. And this venue was not easy for the fans.
Now, there's one other thing that I think might also contribute to, where they play in the future. And I mean, if you look at this tour, how many shows were outdoors? Only a couple.
3. So, I think 3 venues.
Yeah. So, Philly,
SPAC, Forest Hills, and Boulder.
And Boulder. But everything else was inside. And so I feel like, we're starting to maybe see a shift from, I mean, I don't think we're starting to, I think it's happening, and we're in the midst of it, where they are shifting away from, your standard 15, 20 stop shed tour to, indoor arenas that, number one, they don't get canceled if the weather sucks, or if there's, some sort of issue there, or if it's extreme heat, or, whatever. So, and honestly, they've got a pretty comfortable spot not far from their inside, where, everybody knows how it works, including the band. And, so I think there's a general shift away from outdoor shows. This, I feel like, was that novelty, go play here, and, be able to say that Phish played here, right? I mean, if you look at some of the names of the bands that have played in that venue, it's pretty special.
Matters. That matters to them.
And, so I think that they've got that notch on their belt. We've all got the stat in our pocket now. You got your neighborhood shows, which I am always excited when we go to a show at Merriweather because it's 30 minutes away. You walked out your front door and 8 minutes later, we were standing in the security line to go in the venue, which was a very cool experience for me coming to visit you. But for somebody that lives there, I can't imagine the level of excitement in that. Do you want them to come back and play there?
Yeah, of course, for the exact reason you just said.
Yeah.
And I would also do my best to get seats in the stands next time.
Right. So
If
you're
there is a
already
next time.
evaluating how you would do it differently. Yeah.
Right. Because I know the venue inside and out.
Sure.
And I know when to get there. I know when they say we start promptly, they are going to start promptly.
Right.
You just got to pay attention. And also, as we discussed earlier, be respectful, truly respectful to yourself and those around you.
Yeah.
And I think that's really the biggest issue that I saw and experienced during these last two nights. I do hope they come back, but I'm not too optimistic that they will.
Yeah. Yeah. And I hope, maybe, I hope spring's eternal, but maybe we'll get a little bit of a reflective component from this as people. Yeah, my mom is a perennial optimist, and sometimes that comes through. But I think the most disappointing thing for me was us and not the venue or the band or the people in the community around there. It was us, and people are on to the next, and I'm sure that many people who left their shit everywhere won't even give it a second thought. But maybe one or two people will be like, you know what? Maybe next time I'm just going to pick up my 2 empties and throw them in a trash can on my way out, or I'm going to stick that dead balloon in my pocket instead of flinging it onto somebody's front lawn for a dog or a kid, or that somebody else has to pick up after me. But that's the scourge, and
well, at least we got some good music out of it.
We did. We got some incredible music, and at the end of the day, that's what we go for. And again, getting to hang out with you and your wife, and meeting new friends, and catching up with some people that we hadn't seen. It was a great experience overall. I am always hesitant to complain about leisure activities.
Right. Let's not forget we're all lucky every time.
Right. We're lucky to be able to do this. My wife and I are fortunate enough that we can, because of our, both being teachers, that we have the opportunity to do this. So we're truly grateful for that. And that's first and foremost. And the music is what brings it all together. But, there are some things where you hope, yeah, come on, man. Come on. We're better than this. We can do better. And if we want to come back to places like this, a lot of it is on us.
Exactly.
It's not the band,
right.
So,
well, TBD. We'll find out next
right.
February when the summer tour is announced, God willing. But
right.
Josh, thanks again for taking the time about 24 to 36 hours after, so we could just do our long hot take on these 2 nights at Forest Hills at a new venue, and hope you have a good rest of your summer. Are you going to SPAC?
No, not doing SPAC. We're got a little bit of a break. We'll be at Hampton for those 3, and we're doing King Gizzard in a couple weeks. They're playing with the National Symphony Orchestra at Merriweather. Got a couple of hip hop shows in the mix. And I'm sure some other things will pop up, but we are off of the Phish tour until those last couple at Hampton, and then presumably we'll be at MSG once that whole situation drops.
All right. Well, until the MSG, until 2026. Great having another recording with you. I hope to do it again soon.
Absolutely, buddy. Have a great time up at SPAC, and give my best to your wife. All right.
And that's it for the Forest Hills 2025 recap. Thanks so much to Josh from Stub Me Down for joining me today so we could, in some cases, commiserate, but also in some cases, celebrate the 2 nights at Forest Hills. In any case, I hope everyone has a good rest of their summer tour, and if you're seeing any shows in September, enjoy those. Thank you so much for listening. Please leave a rating or a review of Attendance Bias wherever you listen to podcasts. Enjoy and have a great rest of your summer.